The current license with the Jamaica Public Service Company expires in 2027. This is just around the corner. The next license must be negotiated with one overriding objective: to reduce the cost of electricity for Jamaican households and businesses. That is central to being able to build back better than before. The transition to renewable energy has to be accelerated. Jamaica is blessed with ample sources of solar, wind, and other renewable energy. They are cleaner, they are cheaper. And as the current war rages in the Middle East, Jamaica remains way too vulnerable to external shocks that cause sharp, painful, and economically debilitating spikes in the price of oil and gas that we import to fuel our imbalanced energy sector. And you know, I have to remind the House, it was us who passed the Electricity Act in 2015 to modernize the framework. Aspects of it have not been rolled out or no, certain codes have not been developed and so on. And we were the ones who established the General Procurement Office to ensure that new projects to build out productive capacity in the energy sector could be done transparently and efficiently. But it has been an absolute disaster, the way you've managed it over the last 10 years. There have been for 8 years, there was no RFP issued. And we've been stagnant in the same mix, essentially, other than the projects that were initiated under us and came to fruition a few years after. You should be issuing utility-scale requests for proposals every 2 or 3 years, ensuring a steady pipeline of new generation capacity. This modern approach is how we would build back better than before. You also need to seriously tackle the social dimension of energy poverty. Tens of thousands of Jamaican households remain informal customers, living in fear of fires. Our electricity empowerment program would help low-income houses and households connections with support for rewiring, inspection, and solar panel installation. We've been calling for this for several years now. We made a small start last year. It's kind of fallen. In my own constituency, I was one of the first people to write in with a proposal for the program that was announced last year to be rolled out in my constituency. I've heard nothing since. You also should say that our electricity empowerment program would help low-income houses regularize connections, supporting rewiring, inspection, and solar panel installation. This is not just about reducing electricity theft. It is about restoring dignity and security in people's homes. It's about bringing everyone into the light, safely and affordably. That is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, looking at the health sector, Jamaica's hospitals in the public health system are in a shockingly bad state. Corridors are filled with patients. Vital equipment either doesn't exist or is not in good working order. The staff are doing the work of 3 people each with the resources of 1. The crisis in the health system has now been compounded by the decision of this government to terminate the Cuban arrangement. For the past century, half a century, healthcare workers from Cuba have served side by side with our own professionals in our hospitals, in our clinics, under a bilateral agreement that facilitated cooperation, and that has stood the thing. Bilateral agreement has been continued under governments on both sides. Plants are overflowing, when our operating theatres sit idle for lack of staff or bits of equipment that aren't working, when our nurses are immigrating in such high numbers. This government has chosen to send home a couple of hundred Cuban doctors and nurses who are on the ground, working in public health facilities and serving our people. That is not building better than before, unless you have a coming in place to replace it, which you don't. So I say, why not roll out a national health insurance scheme, beginning with full coverage for our most vulnerable, children from birth to 18 years, seniors 65 years and older, and persons with disabilities. Start with them. This expansion of coverage should be a cornerstone of building back better than before. If it can't be done in this fiscal year, then do it in next. But get started. It requires a lot of work to do it. We heard about some task force being tasked with developing the proposal. That's years ago, and not a word since. So much talk and so little action. Madam Speaker, you guys, your side, should prioritize functioning diagnostic services in every public hospital. Functioning. No patient should have to wait for an ambulance to transport them elsewhere for a CT scan. No parish should lack basic radiology capacity. We would ensure that every parish hospital has diagnostic equipment that is working, maintained properly, and staffed adequately. That is what a modern health system looks like, and that is building back better than before. You know, and we have this Cornwall regional debacle going into its umpteenth year. I don't know how many years since that project started, a $2 billion budget. 20-odd billion, we don't even know the current numbers, and it can't finish. Now they talk about some dome as a stopgap measure. Well, yeah, great, but finish the project, man. We need proper accountability. Somebody should be held responsible for the mother of all overruns. Madam Speaker, prevention is better than cure. As accessible primary care. You should bring healthcare closer to the people who need it most. We will be upgrading community clinics, extending opening hours and installing better equipment. That is building back better than before. You need to restore morale in the health service by restoring respect for those who deliver the service. You should be compensating healthcare workers fairly and providing them with housing support through the National Housing Trust and ensuring that they have the tools that they need to do the job. A stronger, more resilient health system requires stronger, better supported workforce. That is building back better than before. Too many of our people are leaving our shores in healthcare, in education, in all the professions because they're not being adequately looked at. And it just needs a proper retention plan with some creative things. We've given them a load of ideas as to how to weak and unproductive and uncompetitive. Hurricane Melissa has only made that crisis worse. Damaged schools, poor access roads, disrupted families, heightened economic pressures have pushed absenteeism to unacceptable levels. I heard today where a senior police officer in one of the affected parishes was saying there's some 400 students who are missing from the system. In one parish alone. In one parish alone, 400. That was in today's news. My goodness. Thousands of our children cannot attend school 5 days a week because they cannot afford transportation or a daily meal. This has to be addressed head-on. Madam Speaker, importing 110 old buses for $1.4 billion Jamaican dollars for rural student transportation without following any competitive procurement procedure has, within a few months, been shown to be a very bad decision, if not worse. If not worse. We told you that from the very beginning. Now, after $1.4 billion of purchasing these old buses and another $871 million in operating expenses with a revenue model that has not worked at all, you say that you're switching to new buses. All I can say is, what a tangled web you weave. when you practice to deceive. Madam Speaker, our plan would have given the people the Rural Initiative for Delivering Education, we call it RIDE, to provide transportation subsidies, initially for 20,000 vulnerable primary and secondary students who are outside of the JUTC network. We would be partnering with vetted, licensed transport operators and schools to deliver a cash-free, transparent system with the objective of ensuring that no child is left at home because of transportation challenges. We would have started with that. That is building back better than before. We all know a hungry child cannot learn, an undernourished child cannot concentrate. You should be ensuring that every child who needs a meal at school receives one every single school day. We would be rolling out the Ensuring Adequate Sustenance for Education program, EASE, to expand school nutritional support for 245,000 children. That would be building back before. You should be making sure the children learn, not leaving so many to suffer in illiteracy, tackling the systemic underperformance by investing in teacher training, smaller classes, modern learning techniques and materials. We will be relentless prioritizing the fundamentals of reading, writing and arithmetic and cognitive skills. You have just started to scratch the surface. Thank God for a few private sector and NGO operators who are showing the way in how to address this issue. But it must start early in the school system, not when they're already way past the age that they should be and can't read and write. You should be also addressing the historic deficits of self-esteem, self-love, personal discipline, and a sense of responsibility for others. You should be ensuring our children understand who they are, the greatness of their past and their potential, and what it means to be a citizen of Jamaica. We would be tackling adverse social behaviors head-on by embedding the teachings of the right excellent Marcus Messiah Garvey in the national curriculum and restoring civics education fully. We will be expanding programs for children with special needs, which is a huge problem in the country. Madam Speaker, a respected and motivated teacher is a retained teacher, someone who stays in the system. And a retained teacher is a gift to our nation that keeps on giving for generations. I have to ask, where is your teacher retention plan? You should be encouraging teachers to stay in the system by providing student debt reductions, motor vehicle concessions that increase with years of service, and other things that we have been telling you to do, which are eminently doable, which would make a big difference to the lives of our teachers, increase retention, and you're not doing it. You should be prioritizing our teachers when it comes to National Housing Trust allocations of houses. You should be negotiating package deals for teachers to get free internet service as a tool of their trade. You should be valuing our educators by practical policies that improve their quality of life. That is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, only about, I think it's 21% of the eligible population is enrolled in tertiary education, only 21%. And only 15% of the total workforce holds formal tertiary level qualification, 15%. Jamaica cannot move up the value chain and create an economy that delivers wealth for all our people without expanding access to tertiary education and training. Can't be done. You should be doing something about this, but you're failing the people. We would roll out the First in Family Scholarship Program, providing full scholarships for the first person in a family to attend university or college. And our spokesperson for education should take a bow. It was his creative thinking that put that on the table. I want to big him up for that. With the benefit of that investment in their socio-economic upliftment, they could then help their brothers and sisters to do the same. Madam Speaker, education should lift people up, not weigh them down. Education should lift people up, not weigh them down. many graduates are suffering under the weight of student debt? You need to do more for them. We would have capped student loan bureau loan repayments at a manageable percentage of borrowers' income. We would have suspended their payment obligation on unemployment, taking the risk of economic malaise off of the student and other belongs, and we would not have charged them penalties for that suspension of their obligation. We believe that creating accessible transition from education to employment than before. We commend our ideas to you. Madam Speaker, Hurricane Melissa did not only destroy homes, damage livelihoods. Our farmers, already struggling with low technology, limited financial assistance, limited technical support, lost crops and livestock, lost greenhouses and other structures, and months of invested labor and capital gone, they are suffering. But in every crisis, there lies an opportunity. The opportunity before us is to transform Jamaican agriculture into a modern, resilient sector. That is how to build back better than before. I'm sure you agree. You need to get more serious about building agriculture as a pillar in our farmers building back better than before. We would have a development fund financed by a reallocation of existing import taxes on foreign food and investing those import taxes in our own production and our own farmers and uplifting them. That's what we would have done. We would use it to support land preparation, irrigation, storage, and marketing for local farmers. We would be reducing post-harvest losses from 30% to 20% or less in 5 years. We would be expanding irrigation from the current 18% of arable land to at least 25%. Water security enhances food security, and that is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, you should be deepening on that side, should be deepening and strengthening the linkages between farmers and consumers. The school feeding program should prioritize locally grown, nutritious food, empower our farmers, and feed our children. Hotels and restaurants should be encouraged and supported to buy Jamaican. It's hardly happening. Special economic zones should be established for agriculture. Special economic zones should be established for agriculture, focusing on export crops where we have a competitive advantage. And there are several where we have a competitive advantage. But production levels are so low compared to even 20 years ago. Agriculture is really not going where it needs to go. For example, yam, spices, orchard crops, and medicinal cannabis. I hope you make a difference in that area, because the predecessors have been hopeless. I'm really looking forward to seeing them make some progress. Wants the action. These linkages and markets would be building back better than before. In my 2024 budget presentation, I spoke to the need for greater transparency and rationality in how food import permits are allocated. Imported produce that competes with local farmers raises serious issues of fairness, as the playing field is not level when farmers in North America and Europe benefit from massive state subsidies, alongside other advantages such as economies of scale. The system of granting import permits is also conducive of corruption. At that time, when I said it, foreign imports were causing losses to farmers when there was ample local supply. It is distressing to read in the media once again of a large onion farmer thinking of giving up agriculture and going into another, in the minister's constitution, well, there you go, going into another profession because of the market being undermined by cheap imports. Madam Speaker, this is not just bad policy. It is infected with nepotism. I have seen the customs declaration for an imported shipment of 1,300 bags of onions brought in by a communications company owned by a JLP activist and former MP. I've seen it. I can share it with you if you want to see it. The system of granting import permits needs to be overhauled and put on a transparent footing. And Madam Speaker, priority must be given to importers that represent and support the affected farmers, not politically connected margin gatherers. If you get the privilege of making money out of imported food, those profits will be in the agricultural sector to help build it. Madam Speaker, in the context of this discussion on food security, it is also worth pointing out a peculiar vulnerability of the Jamaican economy, which is our abnormal dependence on remittances. Remittances provide currently some 3.5 billion to the Jamaican people each year. With 100% retention, unlike tourism, port that is lower income families is the largest, most and most impactful available in Jamaica. Remittances are a vital buffer in times of crisis. During the pandemic, when other large earners dried up as international travel ceased, our balance of payments remained largely unaffected, and the exchange rate remained stable because of the increase in remittances, which effectively rebalanced the current account of the country. Similarly, after Melissa struck, in December 2025, net remittance flows of $315.3 million US represented a 13.6% increase over the same month in the prior year, helping to fund the revaluation of our currency, which has taken place since December. And that has helped to keep inflation below what the Bank of Jamaica had originally projected after the storm. And in fact, I think the inflation numbers for February were just published. And again, it's below the lower band of the inflation target of 3.9%. Even in normal times, remittances help to sustain our current account balance and finance our imports, including 1.4 billion of imports, which amount to 20% of total imports, something which we cannot continue to allow. It's not sustainable, and it is depriving value added and wealth creation our economy. But we have to big up and give thanks to the Jamaican diaspora for their commitment to their home country. And their families back a yard. Their role in our economy is fundamental. They deserve to be treated as worthy partners and facilitated in their participation in national development.
Even though he did not win the election.
At the same time, we must acknowledge that
of all time.
over the medium to long term, remittance flows are vulnerable to external shocks. We can't assume we'll always have that. Seeing this with the recent 1% tax on certain remittances in the US, which came into effect in January, the intensification of deportations from the US. Madam Speaker, generations evolved from persons who were born here to their descendants whose ties to Jamaica are necessarily less direct. It will also have an impact. This means that in building back better, we must be mindful of the strategic imperative of reducing our dependency on imported food and drive a fundamental shift towards greater production to meet our population's needs for energy and food. Time come for that. We have been dragging our feet too long. Madam Speaker, the images that emerged after Melissa will stay with us for years. Families sifting through rubble, children sleeping in schoolrooms, community centers, elderly persons exposed to the elements. Housing is not just about shelter, it is about dignity. And too many Jamaicans have been denied dignity for too long. When we rebuild, we cannot just rebuild the same vulnerable structures. We have to build back better than before. The housing deficit stands at nearly 200,000 units, yet only 2,300 homes have been built annually by the NHT over the past decade. 21% of our population lives in informal settlements. This is not merely another statistic. This is a national failure of epic proportions. 21% of our population live in informal settlements. You should be incentivizing development in deep rural communities. You should be offering relocation grants to teachers and healthcare workers to serve in those areas. We would be building at least 500 new houses per term in rural constituencies, and we would prioritize public sector workers and persons with disabilities in the allocation of those houses. That would build back those communities better than before. Madam Speaker, the government must end the annual extraction of $11.4 billion from the National Housing Trust. When it was implemented, it was for 4 years. That should have ended in 2017. 9 years later, it's still going on, and they've announced that they're going to continue for another 5 on top of that. Our spokesperson for finance has shown how we would finance this in a fiscally responsible way, so you don't have to take it anymore. That money should once again be used for housing, not for plugging the government's fiscal accounts. Creating new, affordable home ownership is the only way we ensure that Jamaicans who are toiling day and night to get ahead actually have the opportunity to own their own home. You are failing as a government to meet the affordable housing needs of the people. That is undeniable. Undeniable. That is why we would have established the Young Owners Deposit Fund out of the resources of the NHT to provide grants of $500,000 to first-time home owners under the age of 45 who have contributed to NHT for at least 2 years. That would have helped them to get on the housing ownership ladder. It is why we'll be granting new home buyers a 3-month grace period after their home purchase, before their mortgage payments begin, so they have breathing room to fix up the house and furnish the house. It is why we would have rolled out the rent-to-own program so that self-employed and informally employed Jamaicans can become homeowners. After 6 months of consistently paying rent, they would be qualifying for an NHT mortgage. We would also allow a portion of their rent to count towards their deposit, creating a clear pathway from tenant to ownership. That would be building back a preferential 40% debt service ratio to allow them to qualify for larger loans. That's part of our retention strategy, especially for teachers, nurses, and so on. Recognizing their service with tangible support is the right thing to do in building back better. Madam Speaker, land is the source of wealth. Land ownership is a cornerstone of national identity. Yet so many Jamaicans don't own something. In a safe and secure way. You need to address the conditions faced by hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans who are living in informal settlements. You need to do it. We would be regularizing informal settlements across Jamaica, completing all the unfinished Operation Pride schemes, and upgrading older communities with proper sidewalks, drainage, and green spaces. We'd be replacing zinc fences with concrete walls, not just for cosmetic reasons, but for living in dignity. We would call this our Portia program in honor of Jamaica's first female Prime Minister. Nobody can take that from her. Sister P always stood up for those who need help. Transforming our communities with proper infrastructure is building back better than before. And Madam Speaker, land policy must create intergenerational security for the Jamaican people. I'm going to repeat that. Land policy must create intergenerational security for the Jamaican people. Families who have built homes and lived for generations, public land, should not live in fear of eviction. They never got any reparations after slavery. They never got any land. Land policy. The state must provide the accessible pathway for them to become owners. You are doing nothing about it. Our land policy would change it. We would ensure that when it comes, we build back better, with a more cohesive society than before. We would amend the law to reduce the period required for adverse possession of government land from 60 years to 25 years initially, and we could possibly take it lower than that over. While we are in opposition, we are determined to move this forward because we see it as fundamental. I have done with my team the preparatory research and the drafting work. We have prepared a bill to implement this vital social justice reform. That bill will seek to amend 3 pieces of legislation. The Limitation of Actions Act, which is over 100 years old. The Registration of Titles Act, which is also over 100 years old. And the Cadastral Mapping and Tenure Clarification Special Provisions Act, which is a big mouthful, but it deals with land titling. I will be tabling that bill as a private member's bill after this budget debate. And I'm going to seek support from both sides of the aisle for this reform. Madam Speaker, and where possession is well established, but the 25-year threshold has not yet been met by the person on the land, we would facilitate purchase and titling for them at affordable prices with concessionary payment terms. We need to make owners out of the Jamaican people so that they have a piece of the rock. This is social justice, which is a fundamental aspiration of our political movement. That is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, after 10 years in government, what have you done about beach access in Jamaica? More and more beaches are being taken away from the public. Our people are crying out for access to the beaches of the island. You've been dragging your feet on this issue for years. Your policy is stuck in the usual multiple announcements phase. You know, this is announced and then it's announced and it's announced. It's a bit like that that project in St. Thomas there, where it's open when it's not even, you know, no proper infrastructure. I'm sure it's going to be open a few more times. I see some public bodies have now signed with a big smile on their face to go in there and it's not even ready. We would use the law to guarantee public access while balancing legitimate tourism and private interests. No Jamaican should be barred from the foreshore. Restoring our people's connection to our national heritage should be part of building back better than before. It's very critical. Madam Speaker, Hurricane Melissa left Jamaica's already appalling rural road network in an even more deplorable condition. Farmers in St. Thomas can't get their produce to market. Children in Portland struggle to get to school. Patients in St. Elizabeth suffer in trying to reach health centers. Fixing the road network is an important national priority. It must be done properly to build back better than before. It must place climate resilience at the core. It means proper drainage systems, not pitchy-patchy repairs that don't stand up to the next heavy rains. Culvert and drainage systems designed for climate conditions. Madam Speaker, after 10 years, the government has failed to deliver a comprehensive road maintenance plan. I mean, that's undeniable. We had the road maintenance fund. They terminated that fund. That was a dedicated fund that was supposed to ensure that Jamaica had a proper road maintenance plan. They took it away, used it to guarantee some loan from overseas for some program, and never put anything back in its place. And there was no proper road maintenance plan or policy for years and years and years. And the road network is in a shambles. Now you say that you want to create a one-road authority. You're talking about one-road authority. Madam Speaker, I am not against streamlining responsibilities. I'm not against promoting best practices. I'm not against quality assurance. These are important things. However, local authorities must be empowered to execute robust road repair and maintenance programs in each parish. That is a must. That is a must. We would treat road maintenance as a permanent commitment by establishing a divisional road maintenance fund and allocating at least 15 million per division annually for local road maintenance to be administered through the local authorities. And special provision needs to be made for farm roads. When a farmer can't get yam to Coronation Market, or when a truck can't reach a rural agro-processing center or the market in Montego Bay, it undermines food security, and we all pay the price. The road from the farm to the fork must be passable, reliable, and resilient. We would include a further amount of at least $5 million annually per division in rural areas to maintain farm-to-market roads. That would be building back better than before. And by doing it through the local governance network, you're empowering local communities. It would avoid the pitfalls of centralized bureaucracy. It would empower local people with local knowledge to fix local roads on a timely basis. This places accountability where it belongs, in the hands of local communities and their local representatives. That would be building up better than before. So when you come with the One Road Authority, I ask that that be a part of its design. Now, it can't be centralizing everything, because that's just going to create a bottleneck like the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the cultural and creative economy, which is not merely an economic sector, but the very heartbeat of our nation. The contraction in tourism, the closure of hospitals and hotels and restaurants, the cancellation of cultural tours, all since Melissa, has disrupted the cultural economy of the tourism belt. Community recreation and entertainment, the fish fries and round robins that keep our community alive, have taken a hit. And now we hear that Sumfest moving from Mobay, and it's going to be one night in St. Anne. That's a big hit for Mobay. Over recent months, we have had to say farewell to too many of our cultural icons. The great Jimmy Cliff, who helped to make reggae music an international genre and carried a message of liberation to the world stage. He has left us. We have lost two truly great musicians in Sly Dunbar. We have lost Max Romeo and Cocotte, much loved voices in our genre. These are not entertainers. They were architects of our, ambassadors of our culture, and chroniclers of our lived experience. We honor their memory. It is in this context, made in this House repeatedly over the past years, for the conferral of the Order of National Hero on the Honorable Robert Nesta Marley and the Honorable Louise Bennett Coverley. Bob Marley is not just Jamaica's most famous entertainer, musician, performer. He is a global symbol of one love, of unity, of resistance to oppression in all its forms. His legacy continues to grow and inspire all peoples of the world. He is deserving of our highest national honor. His 80th birthday has passed. The government must act. Miss Lou's pioneering performances and poetry in the Jamaican language provided deeper consciousness and self-affirmation of our cultural identity and uplifted our national confidence. She should be recognized as our second female national heroine. Madam Speaker, in building back better, you must ensure that our artists, our musicians, and our other creatives have access to financing, have access to training, and have access to markets. Right now, they're too often on their own. We would establish a $1 billion revolving creative economy fund to support our creative practitioners in the entertainment, in arts, in fashion, in culture. Investing in our globally competitive cultural assets will help to build back better than before. Madam Speaker, the current system for obtaining permits for entertainment events is fragmented, frustrating, and often unfair, especially in communities that are stigmatized, like some that I represent. The system needs to be made simple, it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be fair. Why haven't you fixed this after 10 years? We need less talk and more action. Our plan would have seen us establish a single window, one-stop permit system for entertainment event applications, transparent and fair. We would build back a cultural economy better than before, because when we invest in our culture, we nourish the heart and soul of Jamaica. We recognize the importance of culture and the creative industries in general, and the entertainment sector in particular, in providing livelihoods and driving commerce at the base of the economy. It is a very important sector. Madam Speaker, I move to small business. If you want to gauge the buoyancy of the Jamaican economy, look at the stock market under this government. This government has presided over 5 years of dormant valuations, sluggish listings, diminishing returns, and wealth. But what about the market vendor, the corner shop owner, the mechanic, the hairdresser, the small contractor? These should be the real engines of our economy, but they are struggling. You must empower MSMEs with concrete, practical support. Jamaica's informal economy has been estimated at 40% of the overall economy. This inhibits, I remind you that in 2015, Jamaica had the best performing stock exchange in the world. Don't forget that, because you like to revise history. We're not letting you do it. Jamaica's informal economy has been estimated at 40% of our total economy. This inhibits national development, because informality is a restriction on the scope for business expansion. These businesses are often excluded from the financial system and from opportunities to build market share, and it contributes to our weak economic growth. The informal economy, Madam Speaker, the informal economy is large, not because Jamaicans want to be outside the system, but because the barriers to formalization are high and the incentives to do so are unreachable. The cost of compliance when MSMEs seek to formalize, both in terms of fees, in terms of effort, are burdensome. Too many of Jamaica's bureaucratic systems are business unfriendly. Even government programs for MSME support that are announced and funded year after year have failed to have the desired impact. Their design and the requirements imposed fail to take the limited capacity of MSMEs into account. And so we don't have transformation, we don't have transition to a better economy. You must lower these costs and remove these barriers. That's your job. That is what we would be doing. That's what we would be doing. We would offer a 3-year tax holiday for businesses once they formalize operations. We would provide discounted government registration, permit, and licensing fees for doing business throughout the same period for new businesses coming into the fold. We would be building back better than before and empowering the economy at the base. This government, and every government, spends billions of dollars annually on goods and services. Small businesses should get their share. The law to allow this has been in place since 2019. We modernized the procurement system with the Public Procurement Act. Regulations took a long time to come after we did that. 2019, they came with provisions for setbacks and margins of appreciation for vulnerable and underserved groups, etc. 2019, nothing has been done to make it happen. 7 years later, you're saying you want to do it now. Well, let's see. This cannot be just mere talk and more of the same. You should be proactive in pushing these arrangements to favor MSMEs. Earmark 15% of government contracts for MSMEs. Actively monitor that target to ensure that it happens. Don't just set a target, Monitor the target, and if it's not on track, why is it on track? What adjustments need to be made to make it happen? That's what we would be doing. That is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, our young people in this country have ideas, they have energy, they have talent. They need capital, they need mentorship. What are you doing about this? I don't see nothing. Way too little. We would have established a revolving $1 billion National Youth Innovation Fund, support youth-led tech and creative startups, empowering our youth to innovate and lead. That would be building back better. You must do something for the young people. I move to workers' rights and the dignity of work. Madam Speaker, the labour movement worked to build modern Jamaica. From the struggles of the trade unions of today, workers have fought for every right they enjoy. But those rights are under threat. A stronger, fairer economy for workers is what it means to build back better than before. Madam Speaker, the abuse of contract work arrangements has become a matter of national shame. Workers in some industries are employed for years, sometimes decades, on repeating short-term contracts that deny them the benefits and protections that are afforded to permanent employees. This undermines families' long-term security, it weakens social cohesion in our society, and it must end. You seem happy to let things continue the way they are. We would not do so. We would ensure that genuine workers receive genuine rights, regardless of the legal form of their contracts. We would be passing comprehensive legislation to eliminate abusive contractual arrangements. That is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, Jamaica needs to promote productivity as a cornerstone of a strong economy. If you work extra hard, you should keep what you earn. What are you doing to incentivize greater national productivity? That's what I want to know. What are you doing? We would remove taxes on overtime pay for persons earning up to $6 million annually. We would remove tax from tips and gratuities for hotel workers and others in the hospitality sector. We would establish joint industrial councils in sectors with high employment but low union representation, bringing employers and workers together to negotiate basic standards on pay and conditions that will attract workers to those industries. Right now, they're struggling to find employees because the conditions of work and other terms are not attractive. That needs to be fixed. That is building back better than before. Madam Speaker, no Jamaican in full-time employment should be living in poverty. We would task the Planning Institute of Jamaica with developing a framework for transitioning from a minimum wage to a living wage, tied to the actual cost of living and adjusted annually for inflation. This would be building back better than before. No more arbitrary increases and so on. It would be a better system. But, Madam Speaker, while doing these important things for the workers, we must not leave out the employers. In taking on the risks of business, they create employment opportunities for our people. They tell us that one of their biggest challenges right now is finding skilled workforce, a skilled workforce that their business needs. Our economy generally, and reconstruction after Melissa in particular, requires skills that have been depleted in this country by years of migration and the mismanagement, quite frankly, of the national training system. This government has failed to come to grips with the productivity gap. Productivity has been in persistent long-term decline in Jamaica at an average annual rate of nearly 0.9%. That problem must be addressed. Sustainable economic growth cannot move to the next gear without a skilled workforce to drive productivity. Good. I'm glad to see you clap. I want to see you do something about it. That's what I want. I don't want to clap. I want you to do something about it. We do not believe in importing workers when Jamaicans here can do the work. We don't believe in that. On the other hand, where skills are needed, to build the economy, and those skills are not available here, it holds back investment and growth. Our system of work permits needs to efficiently, transparently, and inexpensively facilitate the filling of skills which, based on objective evidence and analysis, are insufficiently available locally. It cannot be that you just open up to foreign workers to undercut local workers, drive down or suppress wages in the economy, and also having a permit system which is often corrupt. That can't be the solution. We would implement a digital system for work permit applications to streamline the process for overseas skills, as has been done successfully in Grenada. Grenada started it, and we can do it. While this will help to drive economic growth in the short term, importing skills cannot be a substitute for building and retaining local capacity. Businesses who employ persons from overseas must put in place apprenticeship programs to ensure the transfer of skills to local workers, so that when the overseas employees' contract is up, the skills are still here to help build our economy. Our plan would also incentivize the building of local capacity by providing a matching grant, dollar for dollar, to businesses which invest in training programs. This would be funded out of heart, but would utilize the best form of training, which is hands-on training, on the job, practical experience, immersed in the work discipline of an actual business environment, one for one, dollar for dollar, building the training network, the training capacity of the country, so we can improve productivity, upskill our workforce, compete in the world, build wealth, and a strong economy. Madam Speaker, the quality of a society should be measured by how it treats its most vulnerable members. You say a lot, but you don't deliver anything. Our senior citizens, much of whom have spent their working lives building this country, too often struggle to access their pensions on time. Persons with disabilities face barriers in transportation, housing, education, employment, and daily life. Survivors of domestic violence seek shelter and find waiting lists. That's what's happening. What are you doing about these things? That's my question. What are you doing about these things? The slow payment of pensions, the need for accessibility for persons with disabilities, and domestic violence victims. Strengthening our social safety net should be a critical part of building back better. We would recognize and prioritize timely delivery of pension payments and increase the tax exemption on pension income, recognizing that our seniors have paid their dues and deserve to live with dignity. That should be done. We would be making real positive change. We would establish a national disability fund, allocating, again, $1 billion annually to support persons with disabilities. You see, when you target resources, it's not huge sums of money, but when they're targeted to areas of need, it can really make a massive difference. And that's what needs to happen. That fund would be providing assistive technologies, improved accessibility, and supporting organizations that serve the disability community. We would increase past benefits for pregnant mothers, ensuring adequate nutrition during pregnancy. We would establish support centers in every parish for survivors of domestic and gender-based violence, providing safe havens, counseling, and legal support. Every parish should have a center for that type of care and protection, because gender-based violence is a big problem right across the country. We recognize that important, unsupported social outreach of the church community and other faith-based organizations. We recognize how important that is. They assist vulnerable Jamaicans, especially in underserved communities. We would be establishing a faith-based community transformation fund, funded with $1 billion annually, to support the programs of churches and faith-based organizations that strengthen families, that promote economic resilience, and build community cohesion. They are filling a massive gap in underserved communities, but they struggle. They could do so much more. They have the wherewithal, they have the good intent, they know the people on the ground. The state should get behind them and help to make them make a big difference. Madam Speaker, these are measures that would build back better than before. Now, all well-thinking Jamaicans, welcome and celebrate the significant fall in murders in Jamaica over the past 2 years. And that is after 8 years of questionable policies, using states of emergency as a routine policing tool that the Constitutional Court has ruled to be unlawful. I once again want to extend congratulations to the Commissioner of Police and those brave and selfless police officers for this significant achievement. Respect is due to them. Madam Speaker, the policy of focused deterrence, which we have been calling for some time, has brought results. However, few people are comfortable with a very high level of police fatal shootings. Sometimes in circumstances where there are no living witnesses other than the officers involved. Sustained success in law enforcement requires the support and buy-in of the local population. It does. You can't have a sustained program without the support of the local population. And that support will be at risk if there is a feeling that accountability and justice are being sacrificed. And I've experienced this recently in my own constituency. It's a matter that is probably going to be before the court and so on. I'm not going to speak to it in detail. This is why I once again call for the introduction of body-worn cameras, especially on special operations, when many of the controversial fatal shootings take place. It is not happening. Don't tell me it's happening. Body-worn cameras have been successfully used overseas and are now the norm in several jurisdictions. Madam Speaker, the Jamaica Constabulary Force will benefit. The force will benefit from the enhanced confidence that it will bring among the population when they are assured that there is accountability on both sides for what happened and that they are here to serve and protect. It is a win-win, and I encourage the police to roll it out quickly. Madam Speaker, thousands of Jamaicans are trapped in a cycle of debt, which prevents them from moving forward. They owe property taxes, they owe traffic tickets, they owe water bills, they owe student loans. Interest and penalties have often grown larger than the original debt, and they cannot see a way out. Providing a genuine second chance to these Jamaicans so that they can start over again is a powerful way to build back better than before. We should offer them a second chance for a clean slate. We would give people some room to restart and recover. We would forgive outstanding interest and penalties owed to the government on these debts. And we would provide a moratorium payment for the payment of principal. This is an investment in economic activity. When people are freed from the weight of unpayable debt, they can start to build back their lives. Most often, they benefit from learning where they went wrong before and avoiding repeating those past mistakes. You won't get 100% improvement, but in any good idea, if you're getting majority benefits, and that's worth doing. Many will start businesses. Some will buy homes. They will contribute to the economy. Madam Speaker, clean slate is not just compassionate. It is economically sound. It is another building block in the foundation of building back better than before. Madam Speaker, women are the backbone of this economy. and the society. Women. Women run our markets. Women create new businesses as entrepreneurs, including in agriculture. They staff our hospitals. They lead our classrooms. They shape businesses and corporations. They basically are the majority in the judiciary, in the civil service. They hold families together. Our women are real superstars. Yet the data shows starkly that systems and structures of our society are failing women in several respects. 1 in 4 women will experience inter-partner violence in their lifetime. 1 in 4. Women earn less. Women earn less than men for equivalent work. They are overrepresented in informal employment without access to pensions, health insurance, or housing loans. They bear the primary burden of unpaid care work in the home, and that limits their ability to participate fully in the economy. And when disaster strikes, as it did with Hurricane Melissa, women and girls are disproportionately affected, facing increased risks of violence, displacement, and economic insecurity. I want to say, what are you doing about this? Concrete, measurable action is needed. We would tackle gender-based violence as the national emergency it is. We would launch a national mobile app for the immediate reporting of gender-based violence, integrated with emergency services and local shelters. We would establish special victim support centres, as I've said, in every parish, providing safe havens, counselling and legal support for survivors. We would complete the long-standing review, the outstanding review of the Domestic Violence Act and implement its recommendations to protect women against domestic violence, against stalking, against cyber harassment, against digital abuse. We would strengthen the economic empowerment of women. Our 3-year tax holiday would help women-owned enterprises to step out of the shadows and into the formal economy, earmarking 15% of government contracts for MSMEs would create new opportunities for women entrepreneurs. Our Clean Slate program, forgiving interest and penalties on debts owed to government, will disproportionately benefit women as they are overrepresented among micro entrepreneurs and informal workers. And our policy to remove tax from overtime pay for persons earning up to $6 million a year would put more money in the pockets of working women. Our policies on ending the abuse of short-term contracts at the workplace and the establishment of joint industrial councils in sectors where union representation is low, such as tourism and retail and security, would benefit women who are predominant in those sectors. We would seek to enhance women's participation in political life. For the first time, over 30% of our candidates in the last general election were women. We will work with all political parties, civil society, the Electoral Commission to explore mechanisms for increasing women's representation in national and local government. Madam Speaker, these measures are part of a comprehensive approach to gender justice that recognizes that when women rise, Jamaica rises. When women are safe, families are safe. When women earn, communities prosper. When women lead, governments and governance improves. Because building back better than before means building back fairer, building back with justice, building back so that every Jamaican, regardless of gender, can live in dignity, security and hope, there must be an activist policy in this area. That is our commitment, and we are assured that it would mean building back better than before. Madam Speaker, in 6 months, Jamaica has endured a ferocious hurricane that has tested our national will and our resilience. The war in the Middle East will reverberate across the globe to our shores, threatening supply chains, pushing up prices, making daily lives even harder. The coming months and the coming years will require many decisions that will test our judgment. This is not the time for lazy thinking, for complacency in how the country is governed. As we have shown in this budget debate, there is a better way that things can be done, from the design of the budget itself to the prioritization of things that can make Jamaica stronger and make life better for our people. As this budget debate has shown, there is a genuine alternative to the status quo, an alternative that actively builds on the solid foundation of fiscal stability and brings hope to our people. Jamaica's economy does not need to just drift slowly along as the dreams of our people take them overseas. Now is the time to build back better. It is not just a slogan. It is a call to action for Jamaica to step up its game, do the things and make the changes that will bring a positive difference to our reality. We have put in the time and effort to show that there's a better way forward for Jamaica. We are ready to confront and overcome the challenges and deliver strong and inclusive national development. Yes, it is possible to build a Jamaica where every child can learn, where workers earn value for their effort, where businesses can grow, where each family can own a home, and where every citizen can live with dignity. May God bless the people of Jamaica and this beautiful land we call home. Thank you.
House Leader.
Madam Speaker, we thank the Leader of the Opposition for his presentation.
May God bless. May God bless Mark Gold.
We will return. We will return to the House on Thursday, when we will be addressed in the budget debate by the Prime Minister of Jamaica.
Best of the best.
So, Madam Speaker, so we now move to suspend the budget debate and return on Thursday, and it is intended to do no further business today. So I ask that the House be adjourned until Thursday, March 19 at 2 p.m.
As indicated by the House Leader, the request is that we suspend the debate until Thursday, March 19. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. We now move for the adjournment of the House, which will meet Thursday, March 19, 2026 at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. This honourable House now stands adjourned.
Did you walk into it?
There you have it, guys. The budget debate with Mark Golden in the House.